Welcome, everyone. Noah here on the Dynamics Weekly newsletter and podcast. This is a series of podcasts about Dynamic Communities Community Summit, which is scheduled for October 19th through the 23rd in Orlando, Florida. Here it is, June already. This will be here in no time at all. So if you haven't had a chance to register, now is the time to go out to the website and check out the registration link. We'll be talking with Academy class and session presenters leading up to the conference. And today we have Cari Corozza with us. Hey, Cari, how you doing?
Hey, Noah, I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yep, glad to have you here. We've had plenty of sessions leading up to this one so far, and I've got a slew more to record to get these out. But it's great to hear from people who are going to be speaking at Summit, doing classes, doing sessions. So glad you had time to join us here.
Of course, and
And
I've listened to a lot of the podcasts, and I know you have some big name speakers, so I hope I can follow those up.
nope, I'm sure you will. Yes. So maybe a little bit about yourself. You're the controller at New View Strategies, and you're dialing in from where with us?
I am in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, to be more exact, if anyone's familiar with the area.
Okay. And I don't think I've been to that area myself, but I'm sure we have plenty of people coming down to Orlando from that area for
Yeah, I'd say
Summit.
more, yeah, whole Chicago area in general, but mostly you're just missing out on a lot of beer and cheese. So if you like those things, you might want to visit.
Well, we will keep the humidity down here for you.
Perfect. Love it.
So how long have you been in the Dynamics arena?
That's a really good question, actually. I think it's been just around 10 years now, and I actually started as an end user. I was a financial analyst, and we were using Dynamics Nav back at the time, and my boss, who was the controller, was very involved in the community. She would go to Summit, she would present, do trainings, all sorts of things, and kind of using the software is how I got involved with it. So I eventually transitioned into a consultant role, but I do still use the software every day with NewView Strategies. We use it internally. So because I'm the controller internally, I get to use the software every day and kind of hone in my skills or see if something's not working perfectly. And then externally, I also work with customers, just helping them use their software better, primarily in the finance area with month-end journal entries, financial reporting, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's been about 10 years total now.
And Business Central is your focus now?
Business Central is my focus. Yes, that is
Okay.
100% correct. And Nav, the occasional Nav customer takes me back to
Hmm.
the days when I was using it. But I have to remember with Nav that sometimes I get really excited about new features we have in Business Central, and those Nav users won't have those yet.
Yep. Well, Business Central is a hot topic and just getting hotter and hotter lately. For Summit, you have got a busy week lined up for you. So
Yes,
I
I
figured I'll
do.
just start with your class. You have a class. So Summit is scheduled for October 19th to 23rd. Sunday is the 19th, and you have a whole day, 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon class scheduled for that Sunday. And the title of it is Security and Permissions in Business Central. So maybe we talk about some highlights for that class for everybody.
Definitely. So this is a class that I think I've taught the last 2 to 3 years with Academy at Summit, and I do co-teach this with Cynthia Preeby. And I, I know 8 hours sounds like a long time to talk about security and permissions, but it's like it almost feels like it's not enough time where we could do this over 2 days. But really, what
Hmm.
we focus in on are not just the permissions and permission sets, even though that's a big part of it, but we also look at things like how can we audit changes, how can we administer permissions in a better way. There, while the functionality isn't necessarily new with Business Central, there have been a lot of changes in the past few years. So we also make sure that we spend some time on this to cover how things work today with the new layout of the permissions and everything. And then we kind of talk about whether you're new to Business Central or have been helping your company for 15 years, how can you go about planning for and tackling a security and permissions project? Because one of the things that we really believe is that it's not just an IT or an administration project, it's really a whole company or a whole enterprise project. So getting those users involved in testing and planning and all of that can really just help that project go more smoothly. So that's kind of one of the main things we cover, is not only understanding, but how can you actually take this back to your organization and help to implement it and get everyone else on board with those changes.
And you'll probably have a good mix, I would guess, of IT company users and partners as well. Or
Yes,
is there a
that
different
is
audience you're
an
going
accurate
for?
statement. Yep, nope, that's exactly. We do sometimes have partners trying to help them support their customers better, but then when we do have the end users or the customers, it is primarily the IT admin type group. And a lot of times they come with, very specific questions or things that they're hoping to get out of the session as well. So, while we do have our agenda, there's always little things that come up, and Cynthia and I have been using Business Central long enough and working with permissions long enough that we know there are a lot of little caveats or things that it's like, oh, but you need to be careful of this, those little gotchas. So we always try to incorporate our stories as well into the class, because you don't want people falling asleep during 8 hours of security and permissions. Got to keep it fun.
Yep. And I see prerequisites. They'll have the training environment set up. And so this will be very hands-on in their training environment, that you'll lead them through exercises the entire day.
Yes, exactly. So we do provide an environment. The students just need to bring their own computer. And sometimes the students will choose to use their own company environment because they want to see, how does this really work in a sandbox with my company, rather than, in theory, how does this work in a learning environment. And
Mhm.
we do, as you mentioned, a lot of hands-on, because we've found that that's the best way, especially for adult learners, to learn, because there's so many things pulling people's attention. These IT administrators too are going to be getting emails, partners having interruptions during the session. So we focus on explaining a concept, showing it again, and then having everyone in the class do it. So we find that hands-on really helpful.
And this is for really all levels of users, because I see where here where its ability level is 201 for intermediate. I did see higher in the list here that beginners were listed as programming level.
Yeah, I guess that is a good point. I think it is for all levels. It's if you are looking to get started with your company in Business Central and getting that security set, or, like I mentioned, maybe you're a user who knows a lot about the system and you're just trying to understand, are our permissions right? How does this new permission structure impact our organization? So I definitely think it is kind of a mix. And a lot of the concepts we'll cover will be a bit more complex, because I think that's just the nature of the topic.
Hmm.
So
So everybody
it's for
can grab.
everyone.
Good deal. Awesome. And let's see at the bottom here, you'll find this class on the website, or the list of classes under administration and system administration, as well as security.
Yes, and I believe we do need a minimum number of students for this class to go ahead. So make sure that if you're listening, sign up early, just so that we can make sure before the deadline we meet that number.
Hmm. And they have not. Okay, I'll come back to that in just a minute. But um, the title of it for everybody: Security and Permissions in Business Central. I don't think they've released numbers yet as far as registration, because I think registration just recently opened up. Um,
That could be.
and so they may not have given out any numbers yet. Have you had you've done this session before at other summits? Pretty packed
Yes.
sessions there.
Not as much as we would hope for it to be, which in some ways is good, because if we have, 8 people, it's easier to focus on their specific questions or do a bit more deep dives into those topics that interest them. But at the same time, we really feel that this class can be for more people. So we would just like to get it out there and get a few more attendees. And it can be hard as well, because there's so many good academy sessions going on at the same time. So you might have accounting, administration, Power BI. There's so many different areas where there are academy classes, but we really would love to see a big turnout in this class.
Good deal. So if you're out there listening to this podcast here, and you know of someone who should be listening to this topic, security and permissions in Business Central, by all means, share this with them. Let them know it's out there, and registration is open. And keep in mind that there is a registration for Summit, and there is a separate registration for the classes. So you actually need to do both of those to make sure you get the class registration.
Yes, and I know we have in the past had people show up the same day of the class and they're like, oh, I didn't know this was extra. And, sometimes that
Yep.
can work out, but definitely register in advance. Tell your friends, all of that.
Yep. And in addition to this one, you've got some sessions that are later in the week. Let's look at those. So the first one on the list here that I see is 50 tips in 50 minutes for Business Central Finance Edition. People
Yes.
love the 50 tips style sessions. So and those go by fast. I mean, even though you have like 60 minutes, you filled that time up pretty quickly because there's so many things to consider for Business Central.
Absolutely. And part of my struggle with this is even if I practice and I keep everything to under a minute with, the demo and videos, there's so much more that I want to say about each of these tips. So for me too, it's
Mm-hmm.
about, making sure that I fit those tips in that small amount of time. But the main kind of purpose of this session is so that every user that is coming to the session can leave and go back to their company with at least a few things that they can implement right away. So these aren't necessarily huge, life-altering changes in Business Central, but some of these small tips actually are. Some of these small tips make a huge difference for users, and it's just a really fun session because as I move through each of these tips, and I've done this session in the past, you can just kind of see the looks of amazement when something clicks for someone in the audience. So it's always a really fun session. And this is one that I think, I've gotten really good feedback on in the past. So
Yep.
it does
When,
focus a little bit on, financial reporting, using the system, shortcuts, a little bit of administration and security. So even if you are not a finance user, this session has a little bit for everyone.
yeah, when someone is in the audience and they hear something that you point out and they're like, oh, I can use that right away back at the office. You do spot it in their face in the audience. And it's
Yeah,
really great to see
exactly.
that
It is.
connection.
And for me, it's fun too, because as I put this session together every year, it's always different because there are constantly new things that are being pushed into the system and new things that I learn each year. So it's not just
Hmm.
about, me sharing my information with others, but it's about me learning from the others in the community and Microsoft, what additional things can we do and share with our users? So, even if something has been in the system since the inception of Navision or whatever it was called 20 years ago, if someone doesn't know about it, if no one's ever told them, then they can't use that thing. So yeah, really,
Hmm.
really fun.
And Kara, are you presenting this your solo or with someone else?
This is me solo, yep. So it'll be
Okay.
interesting to see how it goes.
I'm sure you will have no problem at all filling that time up.
Definitely. That's the problem, right? I gotta make sure I keep it clear and concise.
So this is a breakout session. These are about 60 minutes. The class is listed, well, it's not class, it's a session. It's listed on the SummitNA website. It'll be listed in the mobile app when that rolls out in July. The day and time and class are not released yet. Those are still being finalized, but you can still look at the details and figure out if this applies to your work and if you want to add it to your list. So keep it in mind. 50 tips in 50 minutes for Business Central Finance Edition. And Carrie, you've got another session, which is the Business Central Training Kitchen. No more half-baked skills.
Yeah, we really had fun putting this title and session description together, and we wanted to make it
Nice.
something that wasn't just, boring like training, process improvement, efficiencies. What we really wanted to do was kind of give it a fun theme, and I think we may be dressing up potentially, so it should be fun.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, and I will actually be co-presenting this session with one of my colleagues who helps run our training department, Jan Patterson. So kind of
Okay.
the overview of this is that she will kind of explain the concept of what it is that we've found in our time training, our research, our training, all of that, as far as how can you actually give training in your organization and make it stick, and how can you do it in kind of a fun way. So she'll, kind of explain what that concept is, and then I'll actually give an example of how we do our training. So it's a mix of training strategy as well as learning Business Central, processes and functions, because I'll be showing that piece of it.
Will one of you be dressing up as Gordon Ramsay?
It's a really good question. I hadn't thought that far ahead, but we might have to consider that.
Awesome. So this is another breakout session, about 60 minutes. It is for the entry level users new to Business Central, and the name of
Yeah.
it was the business.
And I'd say this training or this session really is for everyone, because we will have a mix, like I said, of features being shared, but I would say it's especially if you're looking to give training to your users, if you are looking to implement BC or already have it implemented and you've found that, we trained our users on these things, but it seems like it's not sticking. So how can we improve that? So I'd say, yeah, probably this is a pretty broad audience that can get something out of this session.
Good, awesome. Let's see. So that covers your class and those two sessions that you have listed there. You've been to many summits before, right?
I have been to 3 or 4 summits, I think.
Have you?
Definitely 2 in Orlando, I think
Okay.
Houston, and maybe it wasn't even San Antonio. So yes, definitely 3 to 4. I'm looking forward to
Okay.
another one.
Good deal. It's a great venue that they're having this down in Orlando at the Gaylord Resort. Really top-notch property. I love when you walk through the lobby area, through the registration area to the first open atrium. They have all the waterways and the bridges, including the turtles and the alligators out there. So if you've never seen those out there, a lot of people have never seen real alligators. So it's a great place for them to see those.
Yes, definitely. I know I think I've been to 2 summits at the Gaylord, and you're right, it's absolutely beautiful facility. I will say though, I've gotten lost in the Gaylord before trying to figure out
It is
where to
very
go.
large. Yes,
Yeah. And the other thing, you live in Florida, so I'm curious if you
I
resonate with
do.
this. I find that when it's really hot and humid outside, they tend to crank up the air conditioning inside. So I just know that in Orlando, I'm always very, very cold when I'm
I don't know
attending any
if they
sort of
crank it
conference
up.
indoors.
I just think that it just feels or concentrates the cold more when it's hot outside.
That could be. That could
But
be. So I
but
always
I
bring my
understand what
sweatshirt to
you're
Orlando.
feeling. We feel it as
Yeah,
well.
great.
But you're gonna need it. It's hot after summer, but it will still be very hot outside in Orlando. But
I
all
have no
this is
doubt that it
enclosed in
will.
glass. Yep.
Yeah.
The conference area section, most of that is when you walk through the first atrium, there's a bridge that goes to the back section, which is where most of the conference rooms are located. The big expo hall and the dining halls and the individual sessions and classes are usually back in that back section. There's a few that are in the near the front, but not very many.
Hmm. Yep,
But
exactly.
it's
I
an
think
easy
when I got
layout.
lost, it was, yeah, well, and if you have the map too, it helps. I think when I've gotten lost, it was trying to go to my room or my boss's room or something like that, where I just couldn't figure out where I was.
Yep. So you being with New View Strategies, will you have a booth in the expo hall?
I think we are still determining whether we are going to do that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. Stay tuned.
Okay. So you may have that. If people are looking to get in touch with you and ask questions before or after classes or sessions, what's the best approach? They'll have the messaging options in the mobile app and starting in July.
Yeah,
You've got LinkedIn. Do you have other preferred methods?
I do have LinkedIn, and I actually really like LinkedIn because I tend to post like kind of like my 50 tips in 50 minutes, just little tips that either I'm just learning and wanting to share with people, or things that I use on a daily basis that I think can help others. So I like LinkedIn because I think it's a good community of people sharing their knowledge. And I know I do get, quite a few messages on there. Or as you mentioned, the app, or my email is Cari, Cari, at getyournewview.com. There are two Caris at Newview Strategies. So I am Cari and the other one is Kerry. So just want to throw that out there.
Good point. There, we'll have that in the closed captioning and in the description for the post here too.
Wonderful. Sounds great.
All right, so that is coming up soon. October will be here in no time at all. If you get a chance, well, let me go ahead and say thanks for joining me today. It's been really great speaking with you about your class coming up on the 19th, Security and Permissions in Business Central. And then those sessions we talked about, Cari, it's 50 tips in 50 minutes for Business Central Finance Edition. And the other session we talked about was the Business Central Training Kitchen, no more half-baked skills. So some great topics there, and I'm sure everybody's looking forward to meeting you down in Orlando.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to seeing you and everyone else in just over 4 months.
I know it'll be here. 4 months seems like forever, but it'll be here in no time at all. So
It
book your
absolutely
flights,
will.
everybody.
Yep.
All right, Cari, thank you so much. We will see you in Orlando.
Awesome. Thank you.